rise. Please join me in prayer. Father, thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather. Father, we lift up those that have COVID, and Father, that you would heal their bodies. Father, we lift up our first responders. Father, we just pray that you would keep them safe. And Father, just be with us as we meet. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. This time, Councilmember Sprouls will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please be seated. If I could have Jeremiah Stanley please come forward. When COVID began, many businesses in the Permian Basin reached out, and probably none more than Lowe's Home Improvement. They gave masks to first the fire, gave it to police, they gave masks to the whole city, and they donated masks to the citizens. And this is just our way of saying thank you. Comes in the form of a proclamation where it says, City of Odessa Proclamation. Our community has been affected by COVID-19 pandemic and has infected our citizens. It is highly recommended to protect oneself and others with personal protective equipment. Our local Lowe's Home Improvement store has gone above and beyond with supporting our community through this pandemic. And Lowe's has assisted in different areas of our community, including building renovations and donations to the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Odessa Chamber of Commerce, and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Lowe's has donated to our 2 local hospitals thousands of masks, gloves, suits, and other medical supplies. Lowe's amazing support includes donation to the Police Department, City of Odessa, and Odessa Emergency Response Management. Now therefore, I, David Turner, by the virtue of authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Odessa, do hereby proclaim October 13th, 2020, Lowe's Home Improvement Day.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the warm welcome. We want to start off by just saying thank you to the City of Odessa. Thank you to my family who supported me to allow me to be in a position to do what we've been able to do. We're not perfect by any means, but we do feel it's a very important piece of our business and our social responsibility to be a part of the community and help out where we can. And we've definitely tried to do that here in Odessa lately. I'm also happy to announce we've got a couple other community projects that'll be up and coming, so we look forward to announcing that next week that we'll be able to do to help the community. That being said, I appreciate all the warm welcome from the city. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Appreciate the council members, thank you again. And look forward to working with you guys in the future. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Next, code enforcement. See them all over the place. This is Code Enforcement Awareness Month, and this is just an opportunity to recognize our code enforcement officers. They do an amazing job of going out and enforcing the laws that we've passed, making sure that abandoned cars are moved, making sure overgrown weeds. It's not a glamorous job and it's not an easy job, but they do an amazing job of taking care of things. We have a proclamation. It says City of Odessa Proclamation. Code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of our citizens in communities throughout the United States. Through the enforcement of building, zoning, housing, animal control, fire safety, environmental, and other codes and ordinances. Code enforcement officers are dedicated, well-trained, and highly responsible individuals who take their jobs seriously, are proud of their local governments within they serve, and are committed to improving neighborhoods in the course of their daily jobs. The City of Odessa honors our code enforcement officers for the contribution these individuals have made to the quality of our community, the accomplishments in making collective decisions concerning our city that bring meaning to our lives, and to recognize the dedication of code enforcement officers. We recognize the many valuable contributions made by the code enforcement officers throughout our city, and to extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service. Now therefore, I, David R. Turner, by the virtue of authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Odessa, do hereby proclaim October 2020 Code Enforcement Awareness Month.
Well, he's pointing to the podium as though I need to say something. Let me first say to our mayor and to our council members and our city manager and assistant city manager and to our director and all of you that have come out. It's such a blessing to be here today to accept this proclamation on behalf of the code enforcement officers. Our code enforcement officers work entirely throughout this pandemic. They never stop working. They're some of the hardest working individual team members that we have in the city of Odessa, and I can say that because I'm a part of them. We are so grateful and so thankful for the support of the council, for the support of city management, and to everyone that helps us do our job. Together, we make a difference in our community. We ask each one of you to take pride in your neighborhood and help us to be continually strong and be about the business of the city of Odessa. So on behalf of the code enforcement staff, we have about 14 code enforcement officers. Our department is made up of about 20 to 21 people. Of course, we couldn't bring them all in today, but we stand strong and we stand in the gap for them today, tonight, and we thank each one of you for making a difference in our community. May God bless each of you.
And she wonders why I looked at her for a word. The next is, one thing that COVID has taught us is that there is a broadband shortage in Ector County and Midland County. Both are underserved, and it wasn't that big of an issue until the pandemic hit, and many of our school kids do not have access to internet at all. I talked to a member of a church that uses dial-up, and Motran was given a grant by ODC, to be able to look at where the problems are in Ector County. And they've done an amazing job of being able to show where the spots are. Going to look towards working with industry and ECISD to be able to address these issues. So I will turn it over to James Beecham.
Thank you, sir. Well, we appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, council members, to be with you today and talk a little bit about this. Just as a note, it always sounds a little funny that this is something Motran's doing, but really when you stop and think about it, our connectivity, our fiber-based broadband systems that are here are a lot like a road system. You know, roads, we move cars and peoples and goods, things of that nature. But this transmission system that we utilize for the internet is much the same way as a road system. We're just moving a lot of data and information. And so we'll go ahead and get right on into it here. Oh, maybe we will. There we go. One of the big questions that we always get is what exactly are we talking about when we say broadband? And just to put it very simply for you, broadband really isn't a thing, it's a speed. And it is the speed of your download and upload on the internet system that you have. Broadband's definition today is 25 megabytes per second download and 3 megabytes per second upload. And to put that in perspective, in about 2015, it was 10 1. So gone up a little bit. It's a definition set by the Federal Communications Commission. Another part to it is fiber, and we're going to talk a lot about fiber in this, and of course fiber is fiber optics. And fiber optics is sort of the gold standard of our internet-based system because you can transmit a lot of information, you can transmit it very quickly, there's very little degradation to those signals. All that being said though, most people the way our home or office is connected is going to be a series of things. There's long haul internet through an area, bringing that service in or out. Then there's going to be a metro system that's kind of like a loop here in Odessa, where you get around to a lot of the community. But then to get it ultimately to your house, it may be DSL, it may be a phone connection, all sorts of things like that. And I say all that just kind of give you a little background into this and how this all comes together. Right here you can see the long haul fiber network for Texas and kind of where it comes through our area. A lot of it filters along the interstate system, which is good for Midland and Odessa, and you see kind of the blow up here at Midland and Odessa, and that's your long haul fiber coming in and out of here. And that's what ultimately connects us to the world around us, whether that's the rest of the United States or even the world. Within that system, though, we also have a metro network that is also fiber, that high end, and you can see it there in Midland and Odessa. And you can see where some of those lines go out even over to the west of West Odessa, going down south along 385, some of the areas, that we do have fiber running along those areas, and that's important as we start looking at solutions and things of that nature. When we originally started this project for ODC, we did a survey here locally in Odessa, and we focused a lot of it on West and South Odessa, just because we felt like those were areas that would be more underserved than maybe in the city proper. A couple of things that were sort of interesting to this and why this issue is so important today. Keep in mind, this survey was done last year in early 2019, far before we got into the pandemic cycle that we're in today. Ector County residents working from home on some level, 49.7%. 34% of them reported working on a daily basis from their home, and maybe they're people who work out in the field and come back and submit data and charts back, things of that nature. 62% once a week or more. And so that was a lot higher than what we expected. I can tell you from an educational standpoint, even then, whether it was job training, safety training, things of that nature, we had roughly about 30% of our population using the internet for some type of educational purpose. One thing that's important to businesses, if you look at this, 68% of those in the survey responded that they do business interactions, i.e. online shopping, at least once a week. 80% on a monthly basis, and generally in that case, that 80% is at least twice a month or more. You can see some of the levels there, and one of the reasons that we think this is so important is this. We've seen some businesses that have had a lot of problems over time, what have you, as they've started implementing online ordering platforms, things of that nature, they've seen a real boom in their business. And when you look at how much is spent with local businesses and how much is spent with non-local businesses, admittedly, we're probably not going to have a lot of businesses in Ector County or in Odessa that are going to compete with Amazon. But we probably have some businesses that can compete, do better, and get more of that piece of pie than they get today. And so that's an important thing as we look forward in this. Here's what we found that was really surprising to us as we went through this. Broadband availability in Ector County overall was 99.3%. 99.3% of households in Ector County had availability of broadband. 97.85% there in West Odessa had some level of access to broadband. Now, based on a lot of the things we hear, that doesn't sound exactly right. And that gets us to the next point, which is this: homes opting not to adopt broadband. We found roughly a little over a third of the homes in Ector County do not have that 25.3 level of speed of broadband. And as you got out in West and South Odessa, it was a lot more. It's about 47%. And we can break that out there. As we said in that first one, we can figure out, based on mapping and what we've looked at, that there's probably somewhere between 360 and 400 homes in Ector County as a whole that don't have any access at all. But what was important about that is being able to narrow that down and really get to where the problem was. So as we looked at that and thought about some of the responses we got, The first thing that came up is about 34% of those folks who are in West and South Odessa stated that they use their mobile device as their primary connection to the internet. Now, some of those you'll see had access to other means. Some, it was the only way that they connected. But that also kind of comes into a trend, and we saw some age things in there. You see a lot of younger people today that don't have a home phone, they use a mobile phone. We realize that there's a lot of that people are really dependent on that device. And some people have really good service, that's great. Some people don't, that comes back in here. But as we started talking to people in West and South Odessa, and then in Odessa as a general, just about why they haven't adopted broadband, why they didn't get that bigger, better speed, and look out at that. 35% said it was too expensive. Well, I get that. I think everything's expensive. A lot of people do, so that makes sense. 58% though said it wasn't available. And this is where we found our first big problem in this, and it kind of goes back to what we were showing there. If you look at the 9 internet service providers who currently operate on a large-scale basis in Odessa, Texas today in Ector County, most of those are not local companies. Most of those do not have a local office. And so there may be a lot of folks out there today that could have access, they just really don't know what's available. And so that was one thing that we looked at, and one of our suggestions to look at some mapping as we go forward to help folks know what's available, kind of like you do today with electric providers and things like that. You can compare prices and all that. Make it easier for them to figure out what's actually available where they live. Another part to that, we started in on a follow-up survey, was to do some speed testing. And again, we really expected that a lot of people were probably not getting what they were paying for. And that's where we were wrong. 58% had a tested level that was on par with what they purchased. As we look at the other 41% in there, what we found was about 16% had an advertised level and they weren't getting near that. But about 25% of those folks that weren't getting the level they had subscribed to, it was a little different situation. They got a really high level of service. Most of them were in the 300 and 400 megabytes per second download range, which is extremely good. But we had some advertised plans out here that are 800 megabytes per second or a 1G plan, and they weren't getting near that. And as we started delving into that, a couple things we found. Some people don't have equipment in their house. Most of those speeds, people would have to put a buffer on, things like that. It was literally too high for the general operation, or it's something they really couldn't take advantage of with the computer equipment or things they had. So that does factor in there as well. But again, as we looked at testing throughout Midland and Odessa on this one, 482 megabytes per second was the highest speed that we found. So maybe a little bit of an issue there, but not a life and death issue like people not being able to get on. So, and when you put that in perspective, how much speed do you really need? Well, it depends on what you're doing. Checking email, that's very little. Even Zoom meetings, 2 to 5 megabytes per second, not a lot there. You can kind of go through some of those. Now, the one exception to this is people who have kids that are involved in online gaming. And that takes up a significant, huge amount of internet capability. We really kind of excluded that from this discussion though, because we're really more interested in meat and potatoes than that sort of thing. And so that's kind of where we looked at with this. And so some people, going back to this, may not really need 25.3. It depends on who you are. It depends on how many people are in your household, how many devices you have connected, if you have a Ring doorbell, if you've got this, if you've got that. So that all kind of plays in this as well. The one thing that was very, very definitive in this process that we found though is that cost was an enormous factor. Over 65% of respondents, and I'll actually tell you with where we're at today on surveys, it's 68%. We're paying nearly $50 more a month for their current service plan than they should have been. Those folks could get a higher level of service and save 45 to 50 bucks a month. What we really learned in this process as we went through it is we are poor consumers. And I don't mean that as a hit to anybody, I'm just saying it is what it is. We took about 10 people out of this pile and sat down and had conversations with each of them. And the thing that we asked them to do was call your service provider. Ask them what deals are available out there. Is there a better deal you can get on? Shop around, look. In all 10 cases, those folks saved a significant amount of money. And it ranged anywhere from $42 to $108 a month out of those 10 people. Each one of them saved money and they got a higher level of service. And you stop and think about it. If you told me, hey James, call AT&T, see what you can do with your plan. For the most part, if you told me that, I'd nod off my hand before I dial the phone number. I wouldn't want to go through that process. But if you tell me I'm going to save $500 or $600 a year, maybe even more, and get a better level of service, that's a different scenario. And this is one of the things that we need to do is help encourage people here to be better consumers. Because stop and think about it for just a moment. If you're an ISP provider in the Midland and Odessa area and you have people paying way more than they should be, even in this market, and compared to surrounding markets, for a much lower product, why would you come in and advertise lower products? Why are you going to come in and look at offering new and exciting packages? You're not, because you want to keep making money. So again, we need to be better consumers. So as we look at this, our recommendations that we're kind of putting out in this project is number one, consumer education. Be better consumers. Two, we have a lot of large entities out here, energy companies, large sector companies that have lots of internet needs. And I'll give you a good example of this. There's a bank in Iran, Texas that had really poor service. They have another branch bank over in Fort Stockton. They were so concerned about the level of service and shutdowns that they had in Iran that they ended up just paying to run fiber from Fort Stockton to Iran. It's only $100,000. In the process though, they picked up so many customers in downtown Iran, which is now high-end fiber, that they got most of that money back from the ISP provider. It was a matter of making those connections. And that leads us to provider outreach. One of the things that we want to do is, and have been doing, is talking to companies about what their plans are for the market, the growth that's occurring here, the needs that are here, and seeing where we can fill a lot of those gaps. And what we're finding is we have those conversations, a lot of them already have plans. As you start talking about the population increases or can hook them up with developers or a large sector user, you speed that process along with making those improvements. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Finally, a unified effort, because most of these companies operate in Midland and Odessa. The commonalities and growth in our market are all kind of the same. And what we'd really like to see ultimately is if we could get both communities to work on this, kind of like we worked on Southwest Airlines, Mayor. And along those lines, Jack Ladd is here from the Midland City Council with me today. And I know this is something that they're real interested in, and Mayor Patrick Payton has tasked him with, and wanting Midland to be working with Odessa in this effort. From an Odessa perspective, there's a blow up of your Metro Fiber map. I will say, as we look at Odessa, we need to work on that Metro Fiber. This is an area that we greatly need to improve. And not to get in trouble here, but that's the Midland Fiber map, the Metro Fiber map. So think about that versus where we're at. We've got to build this out a little bit, but the backbone is all there, so I think it's pretty doable. Again, when you start thinking about what's over in West Odessa, as far as that in South Odessa, there are the tenants there to start that build out. And again, this comes back to the outreach with providers and then finding those large users or industrial developers who can play into this and make those connections so that these things sort of happen on their own. When we started this process for ODC, and I know Wesley's here and he's worked with us a lot on it, that first map there, Ector County, 25 megabytes per second, that was the service area. When that map came out though, and this is the funny thing, you think all these companies all know what they're doing, know what everybody else is doing. They don't. They keep that information to themselves. They saw a lot of gaps in that map. And you can see here the current map where that's filled in. So sometimes just letting folks know what's happening, where those gaps are, where service is needed, it'll automatically kind of take care of itself because again, they're in business and they're looking at filling a niche there. This map here, the top left-hand corner there, if you look at that, that's where we're at today. One of the providers that's going to be on our webinar tomorrow that we're bringing into Odessa at the end of the month is a company called NextLink. And you see the green in this new map here. This is what they're filling in with about $80 to $90 million of CAF grants in the Midland and Odessa area. So again, we're making progress already, and we've asked them to look specifically West Odessa, Gardendale, some of the northern parts of Odessa, Greenwood over in Midland, some of those deals, at filling those gaps. And what we're doing is we're bringing in that meeting with them, developers in this area, some of those large users who can again make those connections to make it doable and build those areas out. So we think that's very positive. Ultimately, 100 megabytes per second download, 10 megabytes upload, maybe a little ways off, but as we see things continue to move more in an internet-based direction, that's where we're going to need to be. And so as we're looking at having those discussions with providers, it's not just getting to the definition of broadband today, it's encouraging them to build this system out for tomorrow as well. And so we realize that, and again, all of this has been really made possible by y'all allowing us to do that work, and I want to thank you for that. Cellular is also a part of this. You can see one of the areas there between Odessa and Andrews. There's some gaps there. Midland, going back over along 158, there's some gaps there. Those are two busy roads. We need to work on that, particularly as we realize a lot of people are utilizing that device as their primary connection. And we think, again, as we have these conversations and discussions with companies, we can do that with some of these cellular companies as well, make some progress there. And I showed this, early on in our freight work, Mayor Turner knows this, one of the things that we expressed was all the produced water that's hauled through Odessa, Texas today. And you can see up there, there's 2 counties that have over 500 million barrels annually hauled through them, and that's Ector County and Andrews. Back then, TxDOT didn't really think we had much freight out here. As we've gone through that process of telling the story, talking about what's happening, the growth, all those sorts of things, that we also want to commute with these ISP providers and cellular companies. What we've come out in this latest freight report is that 30% of all the freight tonnage in the state of Texas takes place here in the Permian Basin. So again, it takes a little while, you gotta make a case, but you have to have those discussions. And we think, just as we're seeing some results with roads and highways now, given that opportunity and some discussions with those providers, that we'll be able to help fill in some of those gaps in a very easy way. And with that, I'll kind of wrap it up. Again, I want to thank Wes at ODC for working on this. Thank all of you for your support of this project. And then again to Jack Ladd here, and it's something that we're very excited about. And with that, Mayor, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll shut up and get out of the way.
Any questions?
Okay, James, I need you to go back because I'm really confused. When you said 97.85% of homes in West Odessa have access to broadband or could be served, I mean, that
It's
kind
a
of
very, very
blows-
high number.
I mean, clearly I don't understand that because I'm thinking that there is a huge amount of our population that couldn't get service if they could afford it. Is that because there aren't providers out there, or is it just that because the cost is so high to it?
It could be a lot of factors. It could be that some of them don't need broadband. We found a lot of people, especially older folks who are not Netflixing, things like that, or they really don't need it. So that can be a factor in there. Some folks, affordability is very much a factor. A certain degree of them, though, don't think it's available. And that's what we went back with that one number, and we're talking about that, because we don't have, when I was a kid, my mother used to cart me around to pay the bills, and you go in, there was a location, you took your check in, this, that, and the other. Most of our ISP providers out here today don't have a local office or a local presence, and they're not widely known. I looked at some of the names on the list, and I didn't know if we were even in the right town. And how would you ever know who provides service there? And so again, how much does that break out as far as affordability? How much of it breaks out they simply don't know what's available where they live? How much of that is maybe they just don't need it? And there could be errors in the mapping. We're getting to some pretty complex mapping here. What I would tell you though is I don't think it's that it's not readily available. There are some people that have issues with access. It's a matter of them knowing what providers are out there, and then again, us being a little bit better consumers and getting better prices. So it's a little combination of those.
So I'm specifically asking this because of the homeschooling and, ECIC being able to get tablets and computers in the hands of every student. But a lot of them apparently can't, they got a tablet, but they don't have internet, do they need broadband? What does it take for every kid to be able to access what their teacher's showing them? I know this sounds very simple, but
Sure. Well, I'll give you a good example. In the Midland Independent School District, they looked at the same thing. What they talked about was building out an LTE network for this. And I don't think they're gonna do that, but that would essentially be a level of about 6.1, 6 megabytes per second download, 1 megabyte upload. And that's what they were gonna utilize. That was the speed that they needed for online school. So that's significantly under 25.3. But again, it's also complicated because do you have 4 kids in a house all trying to access at the same time? Do you have one? What all else is, so it kind of really depends. We looked at that because there was a number in the school's report that said 2 out of 5 kids did not have the adequate level of internet. I would disagree with that number. 2 things that based into it was a survey they did with teachers at the end of the school year based on who had their cameras turned on and off in the class sessions. And as you know, going to Zoom meetings, a lot of people don't turn their cameras on. So do they have access, do they not? Early on in the school year, the school district had kids that would go ahead and come in, or special ed kids in the beginning while other kids were still homeschooling. So we think that number is significantly less. That being said, there are people out there that don't have access, and again, roughly about 300 to 400 houses where it's literally not available, we know that. And we're gonna fill a lot of that gap with NextLink, so that's the good news there. But again, there are others, and it could be cost factor, could be what's available. So again, that's kind of where we went with the consumer education aspect, because I think a lot of our problems get solved in that, by getting people to be better consumers. I know that sounds kind of simple and stupid and Pollyannish, but I think we're gonna make a lot of progress that way if we can.
Well, that's really good to know, because I think probably everybody in this room and certainly on council have asked ourselves what could be done. That is just unacceptable that, that many of our kids couldn't have access to school if they couldn't go in person. And so I think everybody wants to find a solution to this. And
Yeah.
it's hard to get your arms around it.
Again, it really surprised us when we found the availability numbers and how prevalent it was. But again, the other thing was when we looked, there are virtually no other communities that have this level of availability, that have that many non-subscribers. And so again, whether that's the consumer education aspect of this to better shop around those plans and get better deals, or whether it's to make it known what is available out there. We think those things are 2 very important aspects. And then from there, that allows you to focus in. And what we've also found is we've talked to those providers and we said, hey, here's some areas that we know some spotty service, would you be willing to look at those? And they pull up, look how many people live there, they're like, oh, this would be great. Can you give us a list of available inventories for vertical assets? We can just how to not have to build new towers. Sure, yeah, we can do that. Hot diggity dog. So they want to fill in those, and that's the other good point, I guess. Those companies are looking for market share, and if you can provide it to them, or if you can let them know somebody that doesn't have that service, they generally want to get in there and fill it. Thank y'all.
James,
Yes, sir.
can we get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation?
You sure can.
You'll send it to Norma, I bet she gets it to us.
And we also, I think she has the overall report, and then we also made some copies of that as well, but we'll get you the PowerPoint too.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James.
Mr. Ladd, do you have anything you'd like to comment on?
Well, I want to thank y'all for letting someone like me step foot in here. And I really wish we had the hockey penalty boxes at our council, especially after a really heavy lunch. You know, that's just for our protection, so we don't have that. But I wanted to bring up one point. I want to thank James for all of his hard work. Getting to, I mean, this was really him, getting to the bottom of this and figuring out where the source of the problem lies. And I think you can expect a call from me and from James coming forward. And I've worked with Councilman Sprouls. I'm looking forward to working more with Councilman Willis in the future. And really what we're wanting to do is just combine forces. We together have a massive market share. And one of the things we've reached out to with our city manager is wanting to see if we can actually combine forces with the MISD, ECISD, Midland County, Ector County, and the two cities to all go together. We use Grande Communications, for example, but if we all work together to see what we can do, we can probably save ourselves a lot of money and really encourage the development of fiber in our two cities. So we're working really hard, James working really hard, and the mayor of Midland's very interested in making sure that we get high resolution fiber optic cable out in West Texas and also 5G coverage. We want to be able to have the best internet out here, and I hope that all of us, or some of y'all, will join us in a committee, maybe in the coming weeks, to sit down and talk about how we can work together and get joined as a partnership to improve our market share out here. And that's pretty much what we wanted to get across. So I look forward to working with y'all, and hopefully we can come together with a good solution.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we'll move to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Other council action, consider bid award for the water treatment plant generator integration project, $488,000. Mr. Kirk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We come to you tonight with a request for consideration of an award on a generator integration project. Our generator at the water treatment plant catastrophically or abruptly failed, and we are needing to replace that generator. You have given us the opportunity to purchase a new generator, and now we're needing to install the location, the foundation, and connections for that generator into the system. We had two bidders on the project. The low bidder was Denard Electric for $488,108. We're requesting a budget of $612,500 in case we run into some unforeseen circumstances. The project was estimated to be $600,000 to $700,000 initially, so we did get good bids on the project. We appreciate that.
How old was the old generator?
The generator was installed in 1982.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Next, we'll open a public hearing to consider amending the Odessa City Code, Chapter 4, Business Regulations, Article 4-6, peddler and itinerant vendors, Section 6.9, permit required for peddlers, solicitors, and itinerant vendors. Mr. Brindle.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council. This first item that we have on the agenda is an amendment to the city's vendors and itinerant vendors and peddlers code. And what it is we're adding, we're wanting to add a section or to the section that says the additional items that a vendor can use when they're out on location. And what we wanted to do is just add, because it wasn't addressed, is that a vendor could use a trailer, and based on concerns that were expressed by council at the work session, we took out any reference to axles and just left 14 feet in length as a length of the trailer, where they can display their goods on that trailer and have them out, be able to do that, and make that a part and have it addressed by this ordinance. And that's all this amendment is adding that, so it does have a mechanism to address that.
Are there any questions from council?
Mr. Brownlee, have we had any, what caused this to come up?
Mainly, Councilman, it was, there was a lot of abuse with, from out of town vendors coming in with, making really, what I call major productions with, oversized, 30, 40-foot long trailers that were just basically making it more of a permanent type setting instead of the, purpose of a mobile and itinerant type situation here, is what it was doing.
Did we
And-
have,
and
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did we have any local businesses complain?
Yes, sir, we did, quite a few, and but we did not have a mechanism to address that.
I struggle with, I'm a free market capitalist,
Yes, sir.
and if someone has a better idea and can do something with it, then
Yes,
that's the way this
and,
works.
and what brought this about was all the complaints from our local businesses saying that they were, being hurt by this.
Randy, did this also address, like the mobile jet repair, sorry, the mobile jet repair
Yes.
services? Because those were the ones that I probably had seen the most that had very
That's-
large.
That's where most of our complaints were coming from.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so anyone who would like to comment on this agenda item, you would please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed?
Hey,
We have one no vote, so it passes. Next, item 3, we'll open a public hearing to consider the approval of the request by Tabitha McAnamy Hunter for specified use permit to allow beauty shop, one chair, accessory use in single family 3 zoning districts on lot 21, block 13, Scottsdale West. Mr. Brennan.
Yes, sir. The city mailed out, I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, the city mailed out a total of 18 notices on this case. We had 3 written approvals and 3 protests were received. The property involved is located at number 5 Cody Court. The site is on single family 3, and it is occupied by residential use. Land use in the general area does consist of single family residential development. The applicant in this case is Tabitha McElhaney. She does own the property, and the purpose of this request is to approve a specific use permit for a one-chair beauty shop, be an accessory use to the single-family development on this site. We do have a site plan that has been provided. It does show the location of the existing single-family residence, which is approximately 1,734 square feet. The property is approximately 9,607 square feet. The proposed shop will have a floor area of approximately 450 square feet. It will be located next to the existing residence. There will be no additional structures proposed for the development. The proposed beauty shop will require 2 paid parking spaces in addition to the 2 paid spaces that are required for the residents. And this parking is currently existing on the property. The building setbacks and lot coverage, which in this case is approximately 46%, do meet ordinance requirements. And the proposed structures do meet all the setback requirements that are required by ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission did give unanimous approval to this request with adoption of the following conditions. There would be no signage allowed on the property. There would be 1 operator, which would be an immediate family member. The hours of operation would be limited to 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. All applicable building codes would need to be met. The permit would be reviewed upon the receipt of any neighborhood complaints. The council would have the right to terminate the specific use permit for violation of the terms and conditions of this permit, or because of negative effect on this use on the neighborhood. And this would occur after all the appropriate public hearings that would be held related to that. And we're also requesting adoption of this site, and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council?
Randy, I know one of the complaints that the beauty shop, one chair, could possibly turn into a two chair and then a three chair, and we do watch that.
Yes, ma'am, we do,
And
and
we
if,
have avenue in place that if
Yeah.
that happens, as you just read.
yeah, if it did happen, you also could terminate the use permit.
Didn't you say also, Randy, I asked you this before, but you personally talked to the people that protested,
Yes, ma'am, we
right?
try to contact all of them, let them know that we will,
I mean,
You'll
so
be aware
have
of
you,
it.
okay, so you've shared the restrictions with them, and to our knowledge, are they comfortable with that now, or?
they were feeling better, we'll put it that way.
But they would prefer not to have this
Yes.
in their neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am.
In single family 3, that's what it is now?
Yes, ma'am. It's
And-
single family 3.
And what does that allow for? What does the 3 mean after single
The
family?
3 stands for the minimum lot size.
Okay.
Our single-family residences are divided into like single-family estate, which is the largest, and then 1, 2, and 3, and it all based on a minimum lot size. 1 is 10,000 square feet, 2 is 8,000, 3 is a minimum of 6,000 square feet per lot size.
So it's one of the smaller lots.
It, well, it's really one of the more common or prevalent lots within the city of Odessa.
Okay, are there any other questions? Mr. Brennan?
I have a question. Is this salon, or what is proposed for the salon, has that already been built?
It's an existing, like storage building on property,
Oh,
and they're just gonna convert it.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I will open up the floor for anyone who would like to speak on this agenda item. If you would, please come forward. If you just give your name and your address.
My name is Tabitha McElhaney, and I'm the one that lives at 5 Cody Court. The main reason for creating this and wanting to create this into a salon is I have a young son, and through COVID, it's really hard to get everyone on board with doing the same cleaning practices, and I just feel like having him and wanting to have another baby, this is the safest way that I can go about to such a really controlled environment. I've been a hairdresser for almost 10 years, and I've always conducted myself very professionally. And so any rules that are set forth, anything that I need to do, I will do that. And that's
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 4, open a public hearing to consider the approval of the request by Tyler Bradley, owner, SW Howell agent, of the original zoning of light industrial on proposed Lot 1, Block 1, Metal Solutions addition. Mr. Brennan.
Yes, sir. The city mailed out one notice related to this request. It was not returned, and there was not a response to the notice. The property involved in this request is located southwest of the intersection of Interstate 20 and Crane Avenue. Site is currently designated future development. It is vacant. Land use in the area does consist of commercial and industrial development related uses and vacant land. The applicant in this case is Tyler Bradley. He does own the property. SW Howell is acting as his agent. And the request is for original zoning of light industrial on this property. And this would facilitate industrial use development and related uses on the site. The request is not out of scale with the city's comprehensive master plan that does call for this type of use along I-20. The request is also not out of scale with the existing zoning in the area and the existing type of uses as far as type of use and the intensity of the use. The Planning and Zoning Commission did give unanimous approval of this request, and planning staff does concur with this recommendation for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so anyone who would like to comment on this agenda item, if you would, please come forward. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Thanks, sir.
Under resolutions, consider approval of an interlocal cooperation contract with the University of Texas at Permian Basin for street services. Mr. Feldman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is, it's a local agreement that's been done for the past several years. It's an agreement with UTPB for when they need pavement patching, sweeping, ditch cleaning, parking lot work, that type of work. We contract with them, the streets department contracts with them to do that work. Like I say, this has been going on, when I look back, for at least 18 years. So we've been doing this with UTPB for quite a while. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions from Mr. Feldman?
And this is just a continuation of what we've been doing.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes.
pass through costs.
Yes.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Item 6, consider approving resolution of the amended payment schedule to Acre-G to reflect the initial payment of $400,000 instead of $300,000. Mr. Burnett.
Evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for allowing me to come before you today. The Odessa Development Corporation was asked to amend the payment schedule for Acre-G. You might remember this project as a consolidation of a business from Midland into Odessa. 107 retained jobs and 20 new jobs and about $8 or $9 million in payroll and significant capital investment. The original proposal was a 3-year proposal, and ODC changed that to 5. That's where we are today with the $300,000 payment in the first year. The company did request, and ODC did approve, to change that first year's payment to $400,000. All of the capital investment and all of the job creation come in the first year. So they asked for that consideration. ODC did approve that. As you might remember, our agreements are all perform and then pay, so nothing will be paid for until the actual jobs are created and the capital investment is done. So with that, I would ask for your approval of the ODC's recommendation to approve this amendment to their payment schedule this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burnett?
Remind us what the rest of the payment schedule is gonna look like.
It's $1 million over 5 years. It was approved as 300, 300, 2, 2, and 2, 1, and 1, 1,000. This will make it 400, 200, 200, 100, 100, I think is how that goes. That may not add up. I think it's 2 100s at the end. I'm sorry. You caught me on the, and math never was my strong suit. So basically, all we're doing is adding 100 to the first year and taking 100 away from the second year.
And the first year, that payment will be predicated on the CapEx being done in the initial, the jobs that are gonna be created.
Yes, ma'am.
Will all be created
In the first year. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Burnett.
Thank y'all very much.
Item 7, consider a resolution allocating $850,000 in CARES Coronavirus Relief Fund to Ector County Independent School District for the purchase of devices to facilitate distance learning and technological improvements. Mr. Moreno.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item before you this evening is a resolution to consider the allocation of $850,000 to ECISD and CARES Coronavirus Relief Funds. If you recall, the city of Odessa received an allocation of about $6.6 million in CRF funding from the state. Of that funding, we utilized it for a variety of different projects. The funds do provide that at least 75% of those dollars be spent on medical and or payroll type expenses. The remaining 25% can be used for other programs. The regulations for the program specifically outline assistance to promote distance learning for children as a result of closures. To that end, ECISD and the City of Odessa discussed this as a possibility. You heard from Dr. Murray last week when he presented the proposal initially for you. Tonight, we have Dr. Wilkes here for us, and she can certainly re-emphasize that proposal. But this would be dollars that would be spent out of the 25% of the CRF dollars.
Good evening. Yes, we requested, a little over $900,000 to help reimburse the TEA, Texas Education Agency, allowed a one-time local match reimbursement program, which would allow if the city of Odessa added money to our efforts, they would match that money. So the money that is donated or allowed through you guys would be matched by TEA. So that would put us ahead in the realm of devices for children. And connectivity is a struggle, and really appreciate James's presentation tonight. It is a community effort, and we appreciate your support in that as well.
Any questions?
One of the points, if I recall, is that there is a time frame on it.
Yes.
A time deadline for it, and Thursday.
Thursday.
In fact,
Yes.
and it's a one-time deal as far as TEA mentioned that also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
I do. I'm sorry. Doctor, I know that, or I think, that Ector County also received some of these funds.
Yes.
Have they been able to donate any towards this?
Yes, we used CARES money to purchase the almost $4 million worth of devices.
Oh, I didn't
No,
know
she's talking about,
ECIS did,
she's
but I
talking
meant
about
Ector
Ector
County.
Oh, Ector County.
Yes.
We reached out and received no response.
I just wanted to say it's good, you know, in the midst of a lot of bad news or a lot of frowning faces, that we can do something good for our children. I think it's important that the community knows that we are about working together with the other entities, and whenever we can help, we do help. And I think it's just very, very important for our kiddos to be able to work from home or whatever their tablets and things will allow. I'm thankful that TEA is matching it, you know, so that there's no need to it, and just a good opportunity to let the community know that we care, and we absolutely care about our kids.
And I think if we understand correctly, this doubled will be money that you will get, half from TA and half from us, that will go back into your operating funds that you use to buy tablets with. So
Correct.
that should help the city too. I know you asked for the ECISD, I know you asked for a little bit more than that. And had we not been on such a quick timeline, we probably could have done a little bit more because we have a little bit of extra in that fund. But we're still in the process of doing our COVAT, our business grants. And so we were just afraid maybe we were cutting it a little bit close. So it isn't because we didn't think it was a worthwhile project.
Very understandable.
How many devices did y'all purchase?
In this round,
Total was 34,000, right?
correct. This is the TEA matching, and we purchased 5,800 iPads, 1,000 MiFi hotspots, and 6,500 Chromebooks.
What the difference between the Chromebook and the iPad? I mean, they're competitors, so is this an age level?
It is an age level, so an iPad is completely touch, no keyboard, and interactive with the touch, so that it works on applications. Chromebook has a keyboard, and it's a full laptop style device. It operates through the Chrome browser, so it takes you straight to the internet, which connectivity makes that device very important. But that's the main difference, and then the connectivity to Google Classroom, which is where all the online content is housed for students to access. So that's all integrated within a Chromebook.
And those Chromebooks are cheaper.
Chromebooks are cheaper, yes.
Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for being here.
Thank you. Each of your dollars is matched by TEA, so it's double. So we really appreciate your partnership.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, next, is number 8, remove from the table and consider creation of Odessa Public Facilities Corporation. Is there a motion?
Shall I move in favor? So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. We did have members of the community that would like to speak, so I'll see if they still want to speak. Carly Barth?
That's me.
My name is Corliss Barth. I'm a retired ECISD teacher, and I worked for ECISD for 20 years. I taught at the high school. And my concern is the fact that you are trying to, in my book, you're cheating ECISD out of some money when you're doing this PFC. First year, they would be getting $442,113. And when you are going to be doing what you are proposing, and the amount grows each year. And so, I don't know, ECISD is evidently looking for more money, and now you are willing to take it away from them. We have a lot of, this is evidently for apartment buildings. We have empty apartment buildings now as we speak, and it's not for the lower income people, it's more for a middle type person. And I just feel like you're not considering what you're doing for ECISD, even the hospital, Odessa College, they're all going to be losing with the rate of what you're doing.
Well, this is just basically the organization of the beginning, and no project's been looked at. So, as far as the numbers, I'm not sure what those numbers will be, because you're not looking at a project yet. So, but the council didn't bring it up, so it's not gonna be discussed tonight.
Oh, I thought that's okay.
No, we left it on the table, which means they're not gonna do anything with it.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
We
Thank
still
you.
appreciate
let's thank you for coming.
You bet.
comments.
Mr. Robinson, you still want to speak?
City Council, is it still on the table, or
No, it's, did not bring it on.
can we just kill it before I do this?
It's basically just pushing it,
I mean, put a rock on it or something?
it's basically pushing it off.
Let me go through this real quick, okay? The first wave, the new tax bills and increased water and trash bills are just being mailed to the burdened taxpayers of Odessa. Odessa's tax receipts are down 34%, one of the largest drops in Texas. By comparison, our neighbor Midland receipts only dropped 2%. Pioneer and their contributions to Odessa by their purchase of wastewater from Odessa may decline with their layoff of approximately 380 people, mostly which are in our MSA. Over 1,000 new build apartments will soon be completed, all funded by at-risk dollars from investors. Due to the downturns, these will be moderately priced, in which turn will draw tenants from other older apartments. This will create more affordable rents in existing apartments as tenants move up. There will be the law of betterment, supply, demand, and automatic provisioning of lower income apartments without giving up the tax base or the restriction of free enterprise that developers face without added competition of tax abated PFC affiliates. The destructive nature of tax abatements to all other jurisdictions outside of the city's own jurisdiction, and then to be of no benefit to lower income housing seekers, is a double hit to the jurisdiction's taxpayer, as provided through UT Law School study. The PFC will deprive the schools of much needed money that they would otherwise collect from apartment city within the city. The county will miss out, as well as OC, ECHD, but the greatest part will be Ector County Independent School District. This void will have to be filled by taxpayers, all jurisdictions. The only benefactor to PFC in Odessa would be the developer. The city's work media included the views of an attorney whom is vested in the areas of PFCs. He stated that Odessa already provided for low-income housing through Odessa Housing Corporation, and that the PFC would be best used for special areas. He's used Cibolo, Texas as a comparable. Cibolo is a town near San Antonio in MSA. It was 10,000 people 10 years ago. Now it's 30,000 people, same as Big Spring. This city never had an apartment complex, no multi-family housing at all. And along with this, they got a new transmission assembly plant, which employs 900 workers, $400 million project, and the city didn't have any place to put them. So this went hand in hand. That was a very specific need for this. This city chose to build a 326 unit for this specific need. It was $41 million, which is the same as a comparable Tuscany on Fodder Road. That's about the value of theirs, in which case this would drain $450,000 away from ESID, and then 130 from the county, and 90 from the OC, and another 40 or 50 from the hospital district.
3 minutes are up.
Pardon?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Can you spell that town name?
Pardon?
That town?
Cibolo, Cibolo. It was, the attorney is he put it up. And that was his comparison. He said it was a special need, and that was where he would apply it. I'm sorry. Odessa housing supply problem is being solved by at-risk builders, and developers are paying their fair share of taxes. There are flood of new apartments becoming available. Drawing renters to them will be done with a low rate. Odessa's rates have already dropped 26% in recent months. The older apartments will have to drop their rents even more when these new ones become available. This will add to the market's 800 plus units that are coming available. Our schools in dire straits. Why would we rob our children's education funds to give to an unknown and probably a foreign partner in a PFC? The EIC is here today to receive $850 in CARES COVID. They need the money. This PFC would prevent ESDIC, ECHD, EC from getting their share of revenues that a PFC project would abate. Before reaching in the pockets of taxpayers to plant lost income through the use of a yet adopted PFC, we need to hunker down, get through COVID, and through the oil downturn, and with our new elected, newly future council members. I mean, it needs to just stay tabled for a while, let things calm down. We need to take care of business. We need to show our strength when dealing with the path to choose, and never choose the one that is into the unknown. So I ask that you kill this and get down to finishing other projects, and we look at this at a future date.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowe, would you still like to speak?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished council, my name is Chris Crowe, 2388 Bainbridge Drive here in Odessa. First of all, I commend Mr. Robinson. Thank you very much. I think there's not much I can add to that, but I'm going to try. First and foremost, PFC is going to put us in direct competition with existing tax-paying developers and citizens of Ector County, and I think that's wrong. In addition to that, as Mr. Robinson pointed out, we are interfering with our tax abatements for serious tax dollars for all of the other entities, Ector County Hospital District, ECISD, the county itself. I don't think it's your place to do that. Thank you very much to Mr. Sprouls. He reached out to me earlier in this week and answered a lot of my questions, but I don't think council's done a very good job of being transparent or communicating to the general public on this issue for a lot of questions that still are unknown. Length of tax abatements for sure, amount of tax abatements for sure, and I realize the project has not been set up yet. We don't know who's going to oversee the requirements that go behind a PFC as far as making sure these developers do stick to their 50% housing for affordable housing / workforce housing. I see both of those terms being used interchangeably, and both have very distinct meanings, so I'd like some clarification on which one we're talking about. In addition to that, what kind of hammer the city may have In addition to withdrawing tax abatements for the future, there are a lot of unknown issues. I stand very much with Mr. Robinson. I think this issue not only needs to be tabled, but needs to be tabled for a much longer term until we have answers to a lot of the questions. And I would encourage council in the future to please reach out to the citizens with answers to a lot of these questions. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe.
We can respond to this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's important to note, you're here tonight, thank you for being here. This is the fourth time we've had this discussion, and I think even Mr. Robinson would say that we have, I know last time I said, I'm not willing to do anything on this until I have a list of successful PFCs and ones that have failed. Not just the good ones, the ones that have failed. And we were told that we would get that list. We have not. There's not a soul up here that was entertaining doing this without doing more research. So I appreciate your request for more research, and I would appreciate it if you understand that we're not doing anything because we don't have that research. So.
We do, and I appreciate the fact that you're tabling it again tonight. Just since the motion on the agenda was to untable it, we went ahead and felt the need to come in.
Yeah, and I get that, you know, but we never got any information, so, you know, it's very much tabled, you know.
Thank you.
And I think I thank you for your comments, and when you continue to say, we are doing this, we're not doing anything at this point. We were researching that because the whole deal on this PFC was brought to us is something that could take an area in West or South Odessa where nobody wants to build, and you could incent someone to do that. That was the only reason. It was never to compete with apartments in Fondry or whatever. So initially, it sounded like that could be something that is a very good, you know, possibility to be a good deal. We haven't come to that conclusion. We don't have any information that would support that at this point, and I think that we've been very judicious in not doing anything with that. So, and Mr. Robinson, that's the third time that he's made that presentation, and I learned something every time. And you did as being here, so thank you.
Thank you.
I only had one. I think I missed last week, so I didn't know what we were gonna do on this, but exactly what Peggy says, I don't think anyone was ready. When this was proposed to us though, you know, of course that was before COVID, before the oil industry issue. And what we kept getting concerns over were from ECIC and some of the other, our law enforcement, our firefighters, that were having problems finding an affordable place to live. So when this was initially presented to us, you know, that was kind of the sales pitch, it was actually to help our teachers, you know, so that they could, you know, have the opportunity to live in really a nice apartment for not having to pay a house payment for. And so that's why I think we first started looking at this to begin with, because of the outcry that there was no affordable housing in Odessa. Everything costs too much money for our teachers, our first responders, our hospital personnel. And so, I mean, the tax thing is a true concern, you know, to us. But then we were being hit with, you know, we can't keep teachers because they can't afford to live here. We can't recruit first responders because they can't afford to live here. Yeah, nurses, all of that. And so, you know, we weren't trying to benefit a developer. We were, you know, trying to look at avenues to help some of these folks that were having trouble finding housing. So, you know, that's not an excuse, but it's just kind of a reasoning of why we even looked at this.
Okay, anything else? Okay, item 9, consider adopting a new rate review mechanism, RRM, with Atlas Energy. Mr. Phil.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. The agenda item before you is to discuss a rate increase that was filed by Atlas Energy in March of 2020. The City of Odessa is a member of a 66-city steering committee that reviews these type of rate filings. The group reviewed this rate filing, and originally Atlas Energy proposed a $6.6 million increase across its system annually. That was negotiated by the steering committee for a $5.9 million increase. Atmos Energy last sought a increase in September of 2019, last year, for $4.7 million. The steering committee and the council, the outside council, Lloyd Gosling, does recommend that we settle at the $5.9 million amount. Atmos Energy did provide information that in this service area, they have provided $111 million in capital replacements. They have replaced 93 miles of steel pipe, and they've done over 89,000 line locates for safety reasons. Jake with Atmos is also here if there are questions, but it is a recommendation from our outside council that this be approved. Go ahead, Jake.
Jake Hansen, Atmos Energy. Do you guys have any questions or concerns? I'm here to do the best I can to answer them in the laundry.
Any questions from council? Okay, entertain a motion?
So moved.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next under miscellaneous, appointment of boards, Mr. Grimaldo.
Yes, Council, for the Colorado River Municipal Water District, we have the reappointment for the term ending in May 31st, 2022 for Mickey Jones and Dan Holman.
Vicky's the chairman currently, isn't he?
I believe so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have one citizen who would like to speak on comments on non-agenda items, so we will not be able to speak on this. Mr. Hovick.
When you say we won't be able to speak, we won't be able to respond, right?
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. Real quickly, I'm going to be speaking on behalf of many citizens that asked me to attend this meeting and to speak on behalf, and I'll be entering a statement on their behalf. By opinion committee of 124, October 7th, Charles Perry State, Texas State Center, District 28, received this following letter from the City of Odessa legal team. Please accept this letter in the form of request for an Attorney General opinion over the position where the Ector County is required to provide notice to both the City of Odessa, the Odessa Development Corporation, the ODC, of its intent to establish a county assisted district, the CAD. Prior to the county's adoption, the election order authorized the establishment proposed of a county assisted district under Chapter 387 Texas Local Government Code. Now, the voters want to enter the citizens want to enter this statement into the following. The voters overwhelmingly voted in 2018 supporting the question of giving the Ector County a source of sales tax revenue outside the city. This is the CAD. From day one, city officials have been devising ways to circumvent and overturn the will of the voters and take away this revenue. This latest attempt of quietly outsourcing help to take this revenue from the county only continues the pattern of division and secrecy. Oftentimes we've heard over the course of tonight how we're working together, but yet this document has been sent and undermining the Ector County voters. Everyone's ensuring and asking that all our local governments share in a healthy and respectful working relationship so that we all may find a way or best ways to serve the people and the taxpayers of this community. I personally am calling upon my fellow candidates, and mostly I'm asking for my representative, Mr. Spalls, to denounce this division. I'm asking incumbent City Councilman Dewey Bryant, Mayor Turner, to stop these efforts immediately. We must all learn to stand together and work together, and most of all, Odessa and Ector Strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we need a motion to recess for executive session, which is authorized by the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney. The City Council may adjourn into executive session to consider pending or contemplated litigation, reconvening in open session for possible actions. So moved. Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor of going to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're in executive session at 7:03, so I will ask for a motion to come out of executive session.
So, second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. No action was taken in executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Need a second.